The average net profit margin for clothing brands is between 4 and 13%. The net profit after your cost of goods sold and after all of your operational expenses. Most clothing brands are focused on sales, sales, sales. I need more revenue. How do I hit 100K a month in sales? And they fail to actually look under the rug and see how much money their clothing brand is actually making. What I'm going to share with you in this video are things that you've likely never heard before when it comes to running your clothing brand successfully. I'm going to share with you 5 insanely powerful tips on how to make your clothing brand more profitable literally overnight. So if you're not interested in doing that and you want to keep running your clothing brand a little bit sloppy without having your clothing brand in a really healthy place where you're actually making money from it, you can click off this video. But if you're interested, this video is going to change your life. Here it is. Apparel Success is sponsored by my buds over at BrandCrowd. BrandCrowd's a logo maker tool. You type in the name of the logo that you want to have made, hit enter, thousands of logos will come up. You choose a logo that you like, you can edit and refine that logo as long as you want for free until it's perfect. This is a hundo P design I made for my own clothing brand using BrandCrowd. If you're interested, head over to brandcrowd.com/apparel success and you can get up to 66% off at checkout. All right, so first of all, isn't it absolutely insane that the average net profit margin for clothing brands is between 4 and 13%? This just goes to show how much inventory some of these big fast fashion brands are flipping over and how important it is for them to have a really high sales volume, because they have all of this clothing that is sitting on the shelves that doesn't sell, even though they're selling a lot of clothing, and the clothing that's not selling they have to get rid of, so they massively discount it. Then they've got all of their operational expenses, paying for all the stores, paying for all the staff, and at the end of the day, that's what like the average profit margin is for all of these clothing brands. And I've experienced firsthand just how difficult it can be to remain profitable as a clothing brand, even without staff or stores. Like, I run my clothing brand completely online, and all that I've done is outsource the fulfillment of the orders to a fulfillment company, the office supplies that you have to pay for, and the supplies to pack and send out the orders, ordering the inventory. Even just that, it's really hard to remain profitable in this space. So what I'm about to share with you are a whole bunch of very powerful tips on how to make your clothing brand more profitable literally overnight. These are things that you can do right away to instantly make your clothing brand more profitable and completely improve the whole structure of your clothing brand so that you can finally sleep at night without freaking out about whether or not your clothing brand is profitable. All right, so the first tip that I have for you is to cut unnecessary expenses. And I realize that this might be obvious, but how many of you actually do this? Take the time to go into your Visa statements, to go into the expenses for your clothing brand, and look at what you actually need. I just did this recently, and I was looking at the email marketing, and I realized that the price that I was paying for the email marketing plan with Klaviyo was like way higher than I needed to be paying. And I was paying this for a full year. And I realized like I've been paying a couple $100 every month for this email marketing plan when I should have been on a tier that was much lower than what I was paying for. And just by cutting that off, now I'm basically gonna save like $1,000 a year for my clothing brand. Maybe you have some subscriptions that you've literally had for a year that you haven't used at all. Like, I noticed that I had Adobe After Effects and I was paying $30 a month for Adobe After Effects because I thought that that was a program that I was gonna learn. And then what I realized is I never really used this software and I've had it for a year. So just get rid of it. And there's so many different areas of this with your clothing brand that you can just go into and immediately remove a whole ton of expenses. A lot of people think that in order to become more profitable, you have to increase your sales. And the fastest way to actually becoming more profitable for your clothing brand that you could do right now is literally just go into all your statements and just start removing unnecessary expenses that aren't actually necessary inside of your business. The second tip is to reduce production of low margin items. You may have products that you're selling for your clothing brand that you really love to sell. You just like that product and you want to keep selling it, but when you actually like look under the rug, you're not really making much money on it. I know that for me, I was selling this flannel that I absolutely love to sell. It was called the Bonfire flannel. I thought it was totally sick. But when you actually looked at the numbers and how much I could produce that clothing for, it wasn't a very good margin product. And so I ended up getting rid of it because it was hurting the company to keep investing in this product that wasn't making any money for the brand. So take a look at all of the products that you're selling for your brand. And if there's a couple of them that are really bad margins, you may want to consider removing them from your clothing brand just to keep your clothing brand healthy and to keep it more profitable. The third tip is cost control. You want to have careful monitoring and control of your operational expenses. I am so guilty of this. I like to focus on branding and sales and more revenue for my clothing brand. And I've had to learn how to crack the whip on myself when it comes to the expenses and just be much more careful when it comes to the ad spend that you're spending for your clothing brand, the utilities that you're spending money on, like different packaging and different boxes that you're sending things out of. You want to develop the skill of being really careful when it comes to all of the expenses that you're doing inside of your clothing brand. Because since there are such low margins in clothing, if you run Facebook ads for a week longer than you meant to, and you end up spending a few $100s more than you wanted to, you'll notice at the end of that month when you look through the books that you could have saved an extra $500 there. You could have saved an extra $2,000. Like for my own clothing brand, there's been times where I've run ads and I realize, oh my God, I had that ad running this whole week. I just spent an extra $1,500 on ads. So you want to be really careful with all of your little expenses. Just be way more focused on it and don't make the same mistakes that I did. The fourth tip that I have for you is lean inventory management. In almost every case, you want to underproduce on inventory rather than overproduce on inventory. This is a very classic newbie mistake that new clothing brands make. And most of the time it's because they just get excited, they get emotional about their brand, they assume that it's going to do better, and they haven't gotten proof of concept yet. So what you want to do is you want to always try and produce the minimum order quantity in products until you've really proven that they can sell through. Because if you overproduce, you're going to be left with inventory that you have to try and get off the shelves. And in order to do that, you're going to have to put it on a major discount. And when you put it on a major discount, it's going to hurt your margins and you're going to end up losing money on it. So underproducing is great because if you sell out of it, it builds demand. People may sign up on the wait list for your products and they'll be interested in your newsletter to wait for that hoodie to come back and sale. And it's really just kind of a win-win for your brand. Overproducing generally almost in every circumstance will hurt your clothing brand. And the fifth tip is to raise your prices if you need to. Value in clothing isn't always based on the fabrics that you're using. It's also cooked into the brand itself. You can have a much more valuable brand just by simply raising the prices of your brand and making a statement that that's what the value of your brand is. What a lot of new clothing brands do is they try and drop their prices because they think that by dropping their prices, it's going to make it more affordable and therefore people are going to want it more. But what they fail to recognize a lot of times is that by lowering the price, it's actually hurting the perceived value of the product and makes people want it less. This is why things like Gucci hats that are priced at like $500 or $1,000 sell so well, is because since they're priced so high, it creates the value inside of the product and people want it because it gives them a sense of status. It gives them this other feeling that they're getting from their clothing. So I'm not saying to just blindly raise your prices for no reason, but if your margins are really low and you're doing it purposefully to try and get more sales for your brand, stick to your guns, don't undervalue your brand, and keep your clothing at a profit margin that will remain healthy for your brand. And I just want to shoot the shit with you here at the end and explain to you a couple realities that took me a long time to understand with my clothing brand, which is that the clothing brand space is naturally a hard one to be profitable in. It's naturally a hard industry to have a profitable clothing brand in. And when I went into this, I went into it kind of lackadaisically, like, oh, as long as I can get a lot of sales for my brand, my clothing brand will be profitable. But this industry will really challenge you to learn every little aspect of what it takes to run a successful business. Like, I truly believe that if you can run a successful clothing brand, even for a month or two, that you have skill sets that you could apply to practically every single other industry, because getting sales for your clothing brand is very difficult. Keeping it profitable is very difficult. Making it not crazy logistically complex where everything is running smoothly is kind of difficult. Like having fulfillment on time, having customer support, everything that it takes to run a successful clothing brand can be very difficult for you. And I really hope that this video helped you become much more profitable with your brand. And these are the things that really helped me get my clothing brand back in check and much more profitable. So I hope that helps, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.